questions, honest answers. Oh, the messy truth. Your perspectives. Let's begin. Welcome to Kaleidoscope. Hello, Internet. Welcome to this yet to be named podcast. My name is Ruby Raylio, and I am sitting with my friend, Kira. Kira, introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you. So I'm Kira. I'm based here in South Africa. I am 30 years old. Pronouns are she, they. I've been trying to transition for the past few years since I think about 2022 actually, but goes back much longer. And I'm also a content creator. I've had a YouTube channel since, well, so I turned 18, which is back in 2013. So I've got about 10,000 subscribers, which is nothing in the YouTube world, but I mainly do videos focused on breaking free from religion, repressive structures, and also just learning how to be yourself authentically, getting in touch with who you really are, and seeing through the lies of society. Also, do a lot of things on interpersonal things to look out for interpersonally, but mainly I focus on breaking free from toxic groups and religions, cults. I've spoken a lot about them and yeah, but currently, like my channel's in a bit of a gray area where I'm kind of exploring where to go next. And but the big thing I do know is I
Transitioning,
want to get in
so to
touch.
speak.
Yes, it's transitioning while I'm transitioning. Yes, so transitioning squared and trans squared. There you go.
That's a
There's your
great new
title.
name for it, like rebrand.
Yeah, trans squared. uh, so yeah, what a big part of it is like being in touch with fellow creators from around the world. You're obviously from South Africa, but it's just being in touch with the trans community here in South Africa, people who've originated and all from all over the world. Standing together in solidarity in the face of everything that's happening around the globe. And yeah, that's pretty much where things are going. Like I said, it's authentic living. You can't really do that without a supportive community. So yeah, so I'm excited to see where things go. It's been a big change. It's been a big scary change, but I'm excited to be here. And yeah, I'm very hopeful.
You said all of that like you're some kind of veteran in this world, and I feel like such a noob because
We all
I've
have a
been
different journeys.
transitioning. Yeah, sure. Okay, well, I've never said this online, I guess. I started really transitioning. My proverbial egg um, didn't just crack, it was thrown against a wall and viciously stomped on about 3 months before Halloween 2023. And I realized that I had been just lying to myself. And I was honestly driving home from work and thinking about, you know, self-delete and just wondering what speed it would take to guarantee the end in my car. And unsure of what that would be because electric cars are kind of safe. It's not a Tesla, if you're wondering. Fuck you, Elon Musk. But
Yeah, fuck Elon.
yeah.
We can agree there too.
Uh, so anyway, yes, and I was like, okay, I need to start doing something. And one of the things that really kind of gave me a lot of euphoria was starting to cross dress. And I thought, like, because I'd been doing it for a long time actually, but in total denial. And I decided that the first time I'm ever going to go out was Halloween, the when the veil is the thinnest between the genders, so to speak. um so I cross-dressed, and then I continued cross-dressing. And one of the big factors was finally breaking through like financial struggles that I was in. For about 4 years, I'd been digging myself out of debt. And then anyway, so I realized that I needed to do something, but all I wanted to do was dress more realistically. Now, if you're an experienced psychologist, you might go, "Oh, that's dysphoria." But for Ray, it was experimental. So I was like, just experiment more and more. And then I was walking through pharmacies, literally looking for misplaced estrogen. And then I spoke in a podcast before about my breakthrough moment when I had a box of pills in my hand, and I just realized that I would never put that back. Um, yeah, that was December last year. So I have been medically transitioning for just over 8 months. And that is why I feel like a noob when you say you're going on since 2022. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is quite a journey when you first go on those pills. Like for me, I can relate my journey. So that the egg crack, or actually, because it's guess more of a shell crack, to be honest, because like I was aware that I'm different when I was a child, but of course,
Yeah,
being raised in a very religious environment, you you're taught not to show parts of yourself. And so since like the age of 12, that's when I first started going through puberty. And then they were telling me things like, you're going to get a deep voice, you're going to become incredibly hairy, which I am now. Ugh. And there's going to be all kinds of changes. And I was like, no, thanks. Swipe left on those changes. Thank you very much. But yeah,
hard
it's
pass.
hard pass, yes. And then like, yeah, needless to say, I was told if I ever like try and show the side of myself again, it would be the end of me. So I pretty much just decided to wear the mask for my own safety. And since then, it's pretty much just been, I felt disconnected with the world around me. Like even now, still, it's very hard for me to actually, come out of my shell and, feel at one with the world, as it were. But it was only around 2022 that when we moved back to Pretoria in Monument Park, when I was like, going through this egg crack again, coming back out of my shell, and it was like the weirdest, most random thing that I like, seeing a beautiful woman and being like, I want to be her. The thought hit me like, like um, a speeding train. I've had that thought many times before, but I've always like, kept it one side. And this time I actually listened. And when I that hit me, I was like, well, I, I don't know. Can we swear on this podcast?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
I was like, well,
I've
shit.
already fucked
Oh,
Elon Musk once.
oh yeah. Whoa, that's once too many. uh, yeah, I
Not the
forgot
good
we did.
kind.
No, no, no. Please, couldn't be good with him. um, yeah. So I was like, well, shit. What am I gonna do now? And then pretty much decided from there to start seeing a shrink, I guess, or therapist. Let's just call them that. And my first therapy experience was also like I also did think about self delete, off of a balcony. I don't think the balcony was high enough, so that would have been an incredibly stupid thing in any case. But well, it's stupid any way you do it. But still, it
Yeah,
probably
I'm on the
would not have
21st
ended.
floor, by the way. That was a scary thing because there are no safety bars on this building.
Yeah, and yeah, that would be pretty scary. So, but for me, I was just like, well, look, I'm gonna look for help, and my first therapist wasn't, let's say, the greatest. She did guide me to a lot of realizations. Like I did finally meet one of my goals, and that's moving into my own apartment and everything. And I mean, I can go on at length in detail about goal setting. I'm very productivity focused, but also like achieving goals a lot of times lets you realize just how actually pointless they are in a lot of respects. Because I mean, having my own place and everything signed in my name was also a lot of stress that also kept me stuck in a bad environment, which I'm now thankfully out of. But when I moved into my own place, like I remember I was so deeply depressed at the time. I was also like going through a romantic heartbreak, like I was later on, and just I felt like absolutely disgusted with myself. And I mean, I was sitting there in an apartment, in a completely empty apartment, because I never bought furniture for the place, because I don't know why. Like, I just wanted to live as minimalistically as possible. And then, yeah, just, sitting there in the bathtub, depressed and wondering what I'm going to do now. And as I was like going through things in 2023, and this was in South Africa, 2022, like that point, December going into January was a very rough time. It was stage 8 load shedding. Power was off for like 12, 14 hours a day. And I was like
I can
ground zero
imagine.
there. Yeah, yeah. Because I had to, help run some generators for a company that I was working with through my own company at the time, and because their manual switchovers had broken, so then I would have to go like just literally turn a key, but it was like every 2 or 4 hours that you had to go and do it. So then I was waking up at weird hours, and it was a crazy time. And like was the guys to come and refuel the generators were arriving just in the nick of time. There was one time the generator was running on 0%, and that we were still running. But that was pretty scary, because I mean, if it
Seems,
burns out, then you have to push oil through the whole engine and take it apart.
yeah,
But the point was like I was stuck in this routine, like trying to like basically acting like a robot, just I'm just like a machine now, completely disconnected from myself. And then I changed therapist to somebody who's non-binary and very, and of course, trans affirming. And we started working through the issues in more detail. But it was like a very slow kind of, introduction. Like the first therapist tried to rush me through a lot of things. And I think that actually worked against a lot of the progress I was making. And so then in 2023 really was my year of like actually finally coming to terms with a lot of things. It was only like around in 2023, I did actually like go on hormones. I did see a doctor and everything, and then but then after about 11 days, I left it. And there was actually like a sense of relief when I left it, because I was like, okay, thankfully I don't have to go through this. But then about a month after that, everything came crashing down again. So because I also realized I was using the work I was doing as an escape from how I was feeling. And it was, you're acting on autopilot, which is like with dissociation, is you're literally watching yourself and you're feeling so disconnected. And I, I eventually like tried to connect with other people, but there was always like this wall between me and other people. It's
yeah,
because like, um, it just never felt like, okay, I'm safe in the safe environment where I can now start transitioning. And so things went along, and like a lot of things happened. I mean, I can probably write a whole book about all the things that happened in this amount of time. Uh, and then 2024 came around, and I started transitioning again. I took it more seriously this time. I was like, I'm committed. I'm going to do this. And then as I was busy transitioning, I came to terms with a lot of the reality of my dissociation, just how severe things were. And during that first transition, I was also, exploring alternative lifestyles, going a bit nuts, and also dissociating from that. And even now, still, it's kind of scary. Like um, some of the things that, some of the spaces I found myself in, because I was like so at odds with myself. Like growing up, so being, the good child. I'm the oldest child, so I was always held responsible into this extremely high standard. You too, yeah. Like the oldest child problem is you always got to overachieve, and it never feels like enough when you actually do it. So then, yeah, I would be like, and this was like without any alcohol or drugs, like be at like ETC there in Centurion. I was like busy on the dance floor up until four in the morning, like, and I still wouldn't be able to sleep, because you have so much energy, because you're trying to do things to escape. It's like it's all week you're feeling down, and then you escape, and there's like this huge burst of energy comes out, and then of course there's the crash afterward, because now you're back in spaces that don't
yeah,
support you. I mean, I was also part of a church, like at the time. I went every single week, and this is the part of doing things on autopilot. That every week I'm going there and feeling like twice a week, like for morning and evening services and for home cells and being involved. And you go there and you sit there and you're like completely disconnected from yourself, but you still do it because it's a structure. lets you feel some semblance of purpose. Some birds like peering at me through
I
the
s
window. But
I was
anyway,
wondering what that is. I thought it's a cat, and I was like, "That ain't no cat."
no, no, it's not a, unless it's a flying cat. uh, so yeah, then eventually, yeah, middle of last year, I detransitioned again, moved in with my family, and then we moved out of Pretoria, went back to this small town in the middle of nowhere, in Limpopo, and eventually I made some plans. We to come down in April to the Western Cape. And since then, it's been quite a roller coaster where I said I could write a book about the past few years. I think I can write a book just about these past few months because it's been crazy. Because the first place I stayed at in April was like my landlord, like was also very conservative, although like very hypocritical on that point as well. And then when I started coming out as trans, because then I told basically everybody, I made a commitment to letting everybody know, including my family, that I'm trans. Then he found wind about it, and then he dropped me off at the airport and told me to go back to Gauteng. But the problem with that was, well, I didn't have any money to go back to Gauteng, and it's like either be homeless in Cape Town or be homeless back in Pretoria or Joburg or wherever. And I was like, well, look, it's neither's ideal, so let me just stay here and try and make things work. And thankfully, things did open up. I mean, staying in Stellenbosch, but then once again, I went back into the closet, just because I didn't feel safe with that guy. And eventually, because guy smokes a ton of weed and drinks, I realized he was pretty much psychotic. I was living with a crazy person. And he became convinced I was conspiring against him, and I was making cracks in his walls and all kinds of other stuff. And eventually, he gave me notice effective immediately. And then, yeah, I went back to living in a backpackers. And then I found the current place where I'm staying, which is at Solfheim Hostel. So I'm volunteering here. I've been here for almost two months now. And yeah, it's also been a very interesting journey because I just came here while the hostel started, and that's actually how Yeah, that's for context. That's how Ray and I met. So because like I've been like very actively involved in volunteering here, and since then I've just effortlessly come out again as trans, and I didn't even have to tell them to respect my pronouns. They just made the assumption, oh, okay, this is the new name you're going by, we'll use that name, we'll use your pronouns. I didn't
It's not
really have
hard.
to. It's really not hard. They just were like, oh, okay, cool, this is how we'll start referring to you now. And
Yeah.
yeah, since then, like also whenever sometimes people come through and then they don't know and they say bro, and I'm like, well, I don't go by bro. This is who I am. It's pretty much effortless now, and it's also yeah. I realized the big thing was I was kind of scared for no reason to transition in a lot of ways. It's been pretty scary, I would say, but the benefits have greatly outweighed the negatives because I mean, yeah,
But let's not beat around the bush, though. It's fucking scary.
yeah, especially that first coming out moment, and then certain people in your life react exactly as you expected them to react, and then you realize it's not nearly as bad as you thought it was. But still, like the first time I lost a housing situation was really traumatic. I was in shock over it. The second time, I was like, ugh, whatever, man. I know it. I know the drill by now. So kind of it's kind of a muscle you grow as well.
That's not even something I can begin to relate to. Like, I think that I have this expectation, and not to take away from it, obviously it was traumatic. Every coming out is traumatic, no matter who you are or where you're from or which part of the rainbow you're on. But the severity of what can happen to you varies greatly. And one of the reasons I think that mine is traumatic is because I didn't come out. I was outed, and it was taken away from me, and that hurts. But I can't even imagine becoming housing insecure because of that. Like, yeah. So hats off to you.
Thank you. And I have to say, it's one of those things where you develop a skill you never knew you would actually need, and that's learning to have a network that you can count on. And I guess it kind of sounds a little bit weird in a lot of aspects, but I think all of us are actually a lot of us don't realize how far away we are from the street. I mean, a lot of people just they have one job, they've got all their savings in their company folds, and then there they are, they're out in the street. And it's like, I mean, I've seen a news report of a programmer like made a lot of money, lost his job, he's out on the street busy begging. But I've also seen that even though that can happen, it's also that's why it's very important to have a support network with people, even if they temporarily take you in. Having a supportive community really helps a lot. And we do have like LGBT shelters here in Cape Town, but they're full. They're understaffed. There's we don't have enough resources here in South Africa to help the homeless, and I think this is a worldwide problem. And it really is something that I've realized because I mean it wasn't as a result of a personal weakness that I got thrown out of the house. It was a result of somebody else's weakness who was in a much more economically stable position than I am. And there's always bitching, moaning, and saying he's going to be out on the streets. So what does he do? He puts me out on the street. And he actually had the means not to ever be out on the street, but I did. So it's kind of that thing, that cognitive dissonance a lot of people are in. They're like, you're conspiring against. I said, no, it's the other way around. You just don't want to see it. And
Yeah.
like it was quite a shock when it happened.
It's
But
not it, it's not me. It's your fear of what the people that you know are going to say.
mm, mm,
You don't care about me. You only care about the people around you. That
mm,
is the harsh reality for I think for most trans people.
mm, mm. And even when I was like, doing my demo half transition last year, it was weird, even in conservative environments, how people are far more accepting than you might think. Look, if you're not in a church that's a cult, then people kind of have a polarized reaction. Some people are going to be weird, but others are going to be like, even if they don't like it, they're still going to respect you as a person. But unfortunately, they're in belief systems where they push you away.
Yeah, exactly. Like I would never fault someone for feeling uncomfortable with me initially. But the moment because we meet people like that every day, right? Normal cisgendered people who we meet and we go, oh, this person is weird. This is not my style. And you get to know them and you're like, this guy's the fucking greatest. And
Oh, yeah.
if more people could take that approach to like, oh, I have never met a trans person before in my life. Maybe I should drink this coffee with them and just sit down and talk. Everything would change.
And
Everything.
I think it's,
And
yeah.
in a very odd way. And this might be my own. It definitely is my own preconceptions and preconceived notions of what the LGBTQ community is, but in an odd way. Trans people are the least LGBTQ of the LGBTQ and the most at the same time because we are shirking off all of the gender norms, breaking all of the societal rules, but a lot of us are just acting normally. I travel to another country and there are people that never clocked me. And I'm clocky. Like I look trans.
I'm guessing then that that could be made an argument. It's like, well, you know, I guess some people think trans has a look. Like for me, I don't openly look like I'm a trans woman at this point in time. but and I especially like the way I talk and the way I dress, people are like, "Yo, bro," and I'm like, no. And these things are so ingrained. Even in more liberal spaces, you still find people saying these things to you, and it sometimes just is that moment of you have to tell them because they don't know, and try not to assume the negative, even though it is pretty scary. Um, but yeah, it's
Like, I'm not saying it to gender you, but actually you are because you don't say that to girls. And fact, you are gendering me by saying
mm,
bro. Well, yeah, or
mm,
dude.
yeah, yeah, and it I think because I guess it's just also a lot of things are so ingrained into us, and that we don't really stop and think about them. 'Cause, I think especially if you grow up differently, then a lot of people just go on with assumptions that everybody else thinks the same, and they very much hit hard against anything that's different. And yeah, it's very difficult for them to walk past because like I've seen with people, they don't. A lot of people don't do that meta thing of disconnecting and looking at the situation like, oh, I believe these things because this is where I come from. No, it's just I believe these things. I'm right. Don't tell me any different. And the same with gender.
It's one of the hardest things for me as well to do is because right now, this past couple of weeks, I've kind of been there have been days where I've been in a dark place because I'm willfully putting myself through going online, seeking out people that are transphobes that are commenting on pro trans videos and just crucifying them with facts. Okay. And it's fun. It's fun, but it's also devastatingly harmful to my mental health. Um, because I find myself, and this is part of the reason why I'm doing it, I find myself agreeing with them sometimes.
And
And I'm like,
yeah,
oh my God. Yeah. Because I was there. I wanted to be a bloodstain on the side of a bridge, you know? That is a scary reality. And to pull yourself back from that over and over, it gets easier for sure. But oh my God, is it difficult sometimes? And then also, it's so fun to beat them into a point where they just can't do it.
yeah. And like for me, I've also found myself doing that, but it's also like, I already struggle enough with having low energy as it is because, I don't know, like I think also sensory overload, just, the daily tax of living,
Torrent. Yeah.
yeah, all the torrent of stimulation does get to me. Because I mean, I have been diagnosed officially with ADHD. I've not been diagnosed with autism, but I think if you speak to anybody I know, like autism is pretty much that's a given. It just existing already eats away at your energy. Like daily things that people take for granted, neurotypicals, those things eat away at you every single day. So just showing up and doing what needs to be done is already pretty difficult. So for me, uh, going and engaging with negative people, it takes a lot out of me. So it's just
Yeah.
best for me to sidestep it and ignore it and just say what I want to say, and they can sit and spin for all I care. Because yeah, I've having this channel for quite some time, and when I was still more conservative and already then spouting controversial opinions, at some point you just learn that it doesn't matter what you say, somebody's gonna hate on it. Just because they
Yeah.
want to feel heard. Just as much as you want to feel heard, they also want to feel heard. But I can only listen to so many voices at once. So it's just a thing of, well, look, on my channel I try and respond in a very civil and polite way because it's part of the brand that I want to, achieve. It's I'm not gonna just be an asshole for the sake of it. But still, it I do think responding civilly to the ideas so that people know what my stance is in general, and not so much trying to create a negative dialogue with somebody and getting hooked to a conversation that's going to run around in circles, like going on the train to nowhere. It that's more what I want to do. Just put forth what I say, what I believe, and it's with respect, even if you're not respecting me. But yeah, that's on YouTube. In daily life, it's a lot more difficult. Like if you meet somebody and they now are out for blood because they don't like who you are, then it's a lot more difficult to be civil. And yeah,
For sure. For sure. Um, when it comes to the comment section on other people's videos or on mine, if you're a bigot, if you're a transphobe, y- you're gonna find out exactly what I think of you. So, um, other than that, like, I'm even willing to enter into like a logical discourse. But the thing is, if you're a bigot or a transphobe or a homophobe or whatever, none of your discourse is logical. It's not because you haven't taken any time to read. You're part of a cult. Yeah. So that's that's the thing. And if you go, like, one of the things I hate is I will, in good faith, answer a question and ask a couple of my own, and the response will be, "This is just a classic tripe. You're just effing this, effing that, whatever."
mm,
Groovy, bro.
it doesn't help you respond with logic to someone who's taken over by being completely irrational, and they've given themselves over to I hate you, so you can fuck right off. It doesn't matter what you say, fuck right off. And it's like, okay, fine, you can fuck right off as well. It's fine. But yeah,
Exactly. Just
yeah,
be sure
you
you
sh-
never
so
fuck right off in front of my car because I'm not stopping.
yeah. Although you wouldn't want to dent your car. I mean, the poor car.
The cars can be replaced. Just saying. No, I'm joking. But yeah, I don't want anybody's blood on my hands. But if I see you putting someone else's blood on yours is gonna be
Pretty much.
yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
stand
the
with
way.
that too.
Welcome to pride. The only kind of intolerance that is tolerable is the tolerance that dies. I mean, intolerance that dies. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because it doesn't like we've seen with a lot of societal things. It doesn't help you be civil to an authoritarian force who are overtaken by this thing. Because I mean, comment sections are one thing. I mean, anybody can be a keyboard warrior, but when those
Yeah.
ideas keep on being spread and they start accumulating real life action and real life political change towards far right systems like we see are happening globally. I mean, in places like Europe and the US right now, we that's when it doesn't really help being civil because um, I think for me, like if say the government were to change here and they're now starting to bring out laws decriminalizing who we are, then you're going to be as good as a terrorist, and then it's fine. Then I'll be a terrorist because this isn't right. Because just because you're uncomfortable with the like somebody else because you don't want to face parts of yourself, and I don't think every transphobe is secretly trans, but there are parts of themselves that they don't want to face that they're projecting onto
For
you.
sure. If you are a transphobe, it's because you're scared of part of your identity. That's the only way. Like, there's something that scares you, and you're too afraid to deal with.
Exactly. And that's I think that yeah.
The thing that baffles me, though, when you say, and it's true, the global movement towards like far right ideology is that none of these people have ever picked up a fucking history book. Not even tangentially paid attention in history class. I mean, have you? Have you watched Enemy at the Gates? Have you fucking watched any historically accurate movie? Ever? Have you paid attention to what happened in Pearl Harbor? Those were fascists, and you are fascists now. That's what it is.
And we see that now. Like for example, Germany's got another far right party making waves, and it's like, I recently met
Is
somebody
it
from
not the
Germany, and like
AFDA
who
or
have AFD, yeah, Alternative für
yeah,
Deutschland, that one.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Those far right assholes. They because I recently met somebody from Germany, and we were like agreeing it's a bad thing, the rise of the far right, and I was like, you Germans, like, don't you didn't you guys learn from your history? I mean, what happened 100 years ago? This she agreed with me, but still, it's like, don't you guys learn? Like, what happened the last time? It didn't go well, to say the
But
least.
you know the I think and I might be wrong here. I haven't been paying much attention to AFD. Trump is kind of destroying all other radio signals. Um, it's mostly it's mostly young, disengaged men who think that they are entitled to something that they aren't, and they're joining these movements because of and influencers like Andrew Tate. It's just misogyny, and it's also late stage capitalism, and it's just so easy for the the people at the top, for the billionaires, to blame other people. It's what they've done before. It's where the white race comes from. The white race didn't exist before capitalism.
Mm,
It's a
mm,
product of
mm.
divisiveness. Make one group feel like they're superior over all others, and that allows you to control them.
And yeah, it's an invention. I mean, here in South Africa, we have such a harmful history. We're like 3 decades after the end of apartheid, but I mean, half of the people still live below the poverty line. That's not to say the other half is living in affluence either. There's a lot of issues still, and it happened as a result of an ideology.
Yeah, I said earlier that I find myself kind of agreeing with some of these transphobes, right? Online. And I think part of that comes from the legacy of apartheid South Africa. Because as a privileged white person growing up in South Africa, no matter, like, it is virtually impossible for you to get away from racist rhetoric. It's infused in everything, and it's so subtle. It's so subtle. But it's like the concept of having a maid. I would never have dreamed. Like, I remember the first time I saw a Hispanic maid in America, and I thought, what the fuck is going on here? It's like, and you're incognizant of the fact that this is deeply enshrined racism, and that's
'Cause I mean,
scary.
it is, and like I've also like late last year I had to face a lot of my own views because I realized a lot of my own views were actually holding me back, and like I had to come up face to face with a lot of my own racial views that I didn't know were even there. I mean, there's a lot of things we don't realize actually influence our beliefs. I mean, we, especially if you grow up like far right, and capitalism is your god. I mean, I'm Afrikaans, so work is my god. That's literally how I was raised. You can work yourself to death for nothing, and it's apparently something to be proud of. When now I of course I see it as a waste of time, but I still find myself futilely working on way too much stuff, overworking myself. And I'm like, what am I doing? This isn't productive. So it's like parts of yourself that you have to, have a dialogue with and be like, hey, fucking stop it. Like, uh, snap out of this view. Because, and that's also like this is very much a view that we've, forced upon the world at large. Because, as the white race that we want we've infused it into everything around us. And I think also like looking at the wider world, then like the opposite of that scares us. So we go back to what's stable, even if it's not actually nearly as stable as you might think. So I mean, people like argue like, capitalism, yeah, sure, it's not great, but what is the alternative? Because as if capitalism is actually working when it's not. It's creating all kinds of issues. I mean, if you have a car on assembly line and it comes out with, like, I don't know, 80% defects, you would call that a defective car. Now, if you've got a political system that's creating so many defects, but we still want to keep it because we're scared of looking for something else. And yeah, because it is a difficult dialogue, especially if you've been, sorry, I'll let you speak now, especially if you've been raised with it. Looking for something different is, you don't know what else could work. So, of course, you're going to come back to what's stable.
Yeah. But I also think like it's the idea that nothing else could work comes from the people who are benefiting from the system already right now, because they are the ones who benefit from the status quo. Nobody else does. They get to gouge workers on both ends. They pay workers as little as possible to make things that those workers have to buy. And then they charge as much as possible for those things that the workers have to buy. And eventually it doesn't work anymore, but they know that if this doesn't work, then something else is going to take over and they're going to lose all of their wealth. So what do? They start taking other things, necessities that are required, and they give themselves tax cuts. That's what's happening in America right now. So America's debt ceiling has raised by $8 trillion in 4 months. And
Yeah, it's
and
crazy.
now there's inflation, and Medicaid is gone. So where did that money go? Where is it? Like, and then you have transphobes going, well, maggots, right? Red hats. Oh, this is
Mm,
good. He's saving America. Dude, open your fucking eyes, please. Yeah. And also show us the Epstein files, because he's a fucking pedophile, disgusting human being who's a shit stain on the world's pants. Sorry.
mm, exactly. I agree. And it's not just, Americans. Like, we have a MAGA crowd here in South Africa as well. I mean, the oppressed Afrikaners, who think that now, after decades of being the most privileged group, we're like the most privileged group. Now suddenly we're the most oppressed group. It's like, oh no, you're oppressing me. Like, it's all projection, really. Because I mean,
It's the loneliness epidemic spread into races.
exactly. We
I have family members like that.
So do I. An unfortunate amount.
Tell me about your year. We've lost track of things. We were going to talk about 2025.
So so 2025. I've been so like, I wouldn't say I'm really qualified to talk about the political side of things, because I mean, I was front and center in South Africa's politics last year. But this year, I've kind of been disconnected because I was waging my own, fighting my own battles, waging my own wars just to, make ends meet. 2025 has been pretty crazy, I will say. We did actually, like, since last year, coming back to the small town, we stayed on a farm with some people. My grandfather passed away last year, and then then me and my the family, like the three kids, we inherited his car to share amongst us. It's still actually not completely in our name, but so it's like we say, okay, well, my grandfather's still paying the speeding tickets, so there's that. And then we've been driving around, like, just like, it's the first time I've actually had a car. And then yeah, then this year we're like, okay, so we were on the farm. All right, let me just speak more coherently. So we were on the farm. Like we actually like found like alongside a supportive family, and they didn't obviously know about my transgender status, but and they are more conservative. But we could like recover from last year because I've like the client that I mentioned, things didn't end well. In spite of my best efforts, like um, some people just want to villainize you. And I was actually starting to transition, and this client was aware of it. So we then I was in economic dire straits, and then so I moved back in with my family, and then we stayed on this farm, and we was like I basically went monk mode, and just worked on a bunch of projects. It was pretty helpful. I picked up a lot of skills again, got a lot of IT certifications because I love IT. And I never dreamt I would ever say that because when I was a kid, I was like, no, 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 I never want to work in IT, and got an IT job, and I just fell in love with the profession because I mean, who would have known somebody who spends all their day in front of a computer that might actually be the best way to go, but still, it it turned out to be the right field for me, and then like I was building up a lot of skills that then we had to leave, and then we stayed in a Rondawel, pretty small place. Um, so then we were like there for about a month, and then I saved up some money and got the plane ticket to come down to Strand. So that was in March of this year, and then then I made my plans, and then me and the younger siblings um left the house with the car and the dog. So then they moved with other family, and I flew down to Strand. And then then coming down to Strand, um, like there was one client who kept on dragging out a payment, and then I don't know, I was just a little bit too out of sorts to really try and look for clients because with the living situation, the guy said he wanted to help me, but I first wanted to do it a little bit more gradually because baby steps, like start by getting some work in, giving the guy some rent, even though he said I could stay with him for free for 3 months. I part of me was like, okay, maybe this is not going to work out the way you think it would. And then sure enough, a week in, he changed his story. It's like, now I must now start paying rent. And then I was like, okay, well, fine. I've got money coming in, and then I worked out a weekly deal, and I said to him, okay, well, look, I'm going to try and pay you 600 Rand a week. I'm not sure where I'm going to get the money from, but I'm going to make sure it happens. And I did. I did make sure it happens. I got so and he started repeating my own advice at me, and he said, like, people have to apply for hundreds of jobs before they get anything. So you should apply for the same. And then I did apply for hundreds of jobs. I literally did like over 300 jobs on LinkedIn and across many different places. That was a mistake because now I've got recruiters harassing me. But in any case, and they all want you to like go through 5 different interviews before you get to the interview, and it's crazy now, the work world. And but then eventually, like the one place I applied for was Platinum Life, yeah, which like they one of the leading, they sell cancer policies mainly targeting women, well, cisgender women, because it's you like have to be assigned female at birth. They cover that specific part of female anatomy, cancers for that, like breast cancer, cervical cancer. I can probably name you the 8 cancers they cover. Like it's been so drilled into me at this point. And then I got that job, and a weekend, the guy decided, okay, now he doesn't want me around anymore. Because it turned out, getting a high paying job in IT is it's takes a lot more finagling than just sending your CV to a random place that doesn't know you. You need to have inside connections, which is what I was trying to tell people, but this is also once again the old mindset, is, just work hard and you'll get there. So I worked hard at getting work, but still had to end up taking a telesales position in a completely different industry because, well, I needed money to survive. And yeah, it paid decently. And I have no ill will towards that company. They pay very well. I mean, I have to say, if you make sales, they pay well. But it's also in a completely different industry. And I was like sitting there like really depressed because I'm like, I studied IT, now I'm doing something completely different. It's like all my years of education in IT has now been wasted. So, and yeah, then the guy basically threw me out. I mean, I was starting to build a community there in Strand, and I was also thinking, okay, how am I going to transition? But people were getting along with me. I was being myself. I just didn't say I'm trans, and then guy decided to sabotage it. And I think there was a good deal of jealousy as well because he kept on saying things like, you virgin, you know nothing. And I'm because he was going through a divorce at the time. He was talking about how macho he was, and let's just say this guy makes Jabba the Hutt look like a sex symbol. So it it really isn't somebody that is aware of his own downfalls or is very aware of it and just wants to avoid it. So because I was like getting along with a lot of people, and I was like he introduced me to his friends, and I was getting along well with them, and we were having great conversations, and then yeah, and then he kept on calling me a virgin, but I said nothing to him because I was just very amused by that. It's like he didn't know that I'm actually not, and haven't been for some time. But I was just like, okay, it's fine. You can live with your assumptions. I don't feel the need to educate you. But then, yeah, then when he found out I'm trans, then threw me out, and also just lied in general. I don't even want to repeat some of the stuff he said, but he was just making up lies as he went along. I mean, it's also like when he decides to make breakfast, then I must now. He doesn't want to ask me. I must come and make it and make coffee for the two of us. And so there was also this other thing of okay. So he asked me once to bring him coffee in bed as well, and I was like, this is a bit of an unusual request. It's fine, I'll do it. But then I gave him his coffee and then walked out as soon as possible. So I was hoping that would be the hint. Would also walk in his speedo around me, and like I said to you, Jabba the Hutt looks better than this guy. So now you've got this massively ugly guy walking around mainly naked, and he's having a conversation with you, and you're so uncomfortable around him. And he's like sneezing at every woman he gets a chance at because he's going through a divorce and telling everybody about
No
it.
wonder he's getting a divorce.
Yeah, yeah. Because also one of the things he told me was that he was doing some work in a different part of the Western Cape, and then he mentioned like having a sexual encounter with a much older woman, and I pieced together this was while he was still married, and he and his wife were supposed to be monogamous. They like because I asked him because he said no, he had three sims and orgies and all that. I said, oh, so you two were a swinger couple? I said, no, I was. So I was like, oh, okay, so just
That's
he
not
was just
how that
cheating on me.
works.
It's
Yeah.
not how it works now, and then so thank God he actually threw me I'm actually an atheist now, but thank God, praise Jesus, he threw me out. So because it was getting a little bit much. He had a weird attachment over me, and I think um, it probably wouldn't have been very comfortable staying there. So it's best I left. And then yeah, then got to Stellenbosch, staying in a backpackers there while I was busy doing my telesales job. And everybody was like really shocked when I heard the story of like, I'm now basically without a house and I'm still working. I have to come in and work like nothing's different. And it was the most terrible feeling in the world. It's like, where am I going to go next? I don't have a
How did you
house.
pull that
It's just
off?
good question. I think the thing that really helped me was like when I came down to Strand, I immediately started doing therapy. And I got a therapist through Humanitas. They're a brilliant organization. So anybody looking for mental health help in South Africa, I mean, it's free. So you can apply to Humanitas. Obviously, there's a bit of a waiting list. And so I had free therapy, and she's been really great. And yeah, so like every single week, like we were like checking in and, like checking my moods because obviously it was a huge shift coming down to Cape Town. I keep on saying Cape Town when I mean the Western Cape. So the Western Cape in general. And yeah, because it's also a bit of a culture shock because things work very differently to where I'm used to in Gauteng and the northern part of South Africa. They it's very, very quick. And here it's very much not the same way. It's very multicultural and a lot more relaxed. And people are open about things like drug use, for example. And it's quite a shock. coming down here. But while I was busy working, then yeah, I was doing therapy and it was just, taking it a day at a time. Like there were some days where I was sitting there like, okay, I don't have any place booked for the night. Like I don't have a place to stay tonight. So what am I gonna do? And I would like tell friends, like I need some help. And then we would just book it one night at a time. And eventually, like one of the people I was working at, because I was telling a lot of people while I was there at the office, like, this happened. And then one guy said, okay, well, he's leaving. He can't keep up with his job in telesales, but he was gonna stay with this guy in Stellenbosch. So here's the contact. So I made contact with a guy. He seemed nice enough, stoner, so I thought he would be really relaxed. He's there in La Colline, which is like on the border of Stellenbosch and Clutisville. So it's very much on the cusp because Stellenbosch itself, central is a lot of students, but they're richer people. And then you've got the winelands, and then you've got here it goes to more lower income. I was staying in actually a bit more of a lower income area. And yeah, the reason I just mentioned is to paint a picture of what it was like. One guy we spoke about the exact complex I was living in. His words were, "It's not bad, but it's not good." So that's pretty much how we describe it. So then I
Yeah.
stayed with this guy, and he seemed normal enough. I mean, we drank a lot, and like he gave me some weed, and I also like got into the whole weed scene for just about a month, and then I decided it wasn't for me. And but there were some hints like there initially, because he visited with his brother, and they're very weird people. They like very bohemian almost, but like I was a little bit inebriated at the time, so I didn't realize I'm actually dealing with some people who were saying some far right things. Like it was there, I noticed it, but the alcohol was kind of like, but that's not important right now. It's like because my brain was on another mission. Because I saw a cat who looked exactly like Hitler. I know, random, but still. And then they said to me the
You've
cat's
seen this
name.
cat.
Yeah, this cat, like they said, no, no, they said something like, I think his name is. We have a cat named something like that, or they named him after a Nazi figure, and I was like, it's a bit weird to name your pet after a Nazi figure. So yeah, but like I said, as I was drunk at the time, it didn't fully come penetrate my noggin that maybe this isn't the best environment. Oh yeah, and one woman also asked me, it's like, what is a woman? And then I just like answered as neutrally as possible, an adult human female. That's all I said. So I didn't say anything about trans or anything, because yeah, but because I was feeling like the vibes. I thought this was a very friendly place because I had, what did I even have it? I had beer in. I had some guy gave me 12-year-old whiskey. It literally said that on the bottle. Then I drank some of that, and then I had some more beer. So I was not with the show entirely. But then on the way back, the guy I was staying with, the landlord, his car made a funny noise, and he was like, "Somebody's messing around with my car." And then the whole night, nobody touched his car or anything. Then he was. Then that was the first hint that this guy's a little bit, he's not all right in the head. Because then also in his kitchen counter, he had this weird exercise where we do not kind of almost like a dip exercise, but this guy's got like massive hands. He's a big guy, so then he would like do these dip exercises. You would hear the table crack when he's busy doing this. Then later on, he came in randomly and he asked me, "He's like, do you know there's a crack over there? Do you know who caused that?" And I looked at him like, "No, I didn't cause that." It never got into his head. Okay, listen here. It's because you're doing those freaking stupid exercises and you're cracking a
Yeah.
table. That's what happened. So he would constantly see cracks in the wall, and in his room there was a crack above the ceiling. He said that wasn't there, and I said to him, "Listen, I've never been in your room." Then he told me, "No, no, no, you can come in and take a look." And I refused to come into his room because I just think, as a matter of principle, if you've got a landlord, you never enter their room ever. It just felt uncomfortable, especially whether it's a man you barely know. I don't enter his room,
You don't even have to
and
explain
then
it. Yeah.
yeah, I don't even have to explain it, but it was just, I just told him, no, 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 I refuse to come into your room. I firmly told him that. And I said to him, I've never been in your room. That's not me. That's either it was there or somebody worked in there and they caused that crack. But I told him as well, I don't think that's just possible. So then he got more and more paranoid, and I actually really got scared for my life at one point because this guy started threatening me. And then eventually I remember this day, I was at work and sitting with this stress again. I was like, well, look, if it's being threatened by him or living in a hostel again, I would rather just go back to a hostel. So I made that decision and I was about to, go home and get my things. Then he sent me a message and he said, okay, leave. I don't want you around anymore. So it was kind of like, okay, well, I made the decision, but now I no longer have a choice in any case. And I gave him 1,000 rand deposit. He took that deposit as well because apparently I was the one causing cracks in his walls. So it's just, it, people take your rent, then they just throw you out the street, which is anyways illegal in South Africa, but people still do it in any case. So yeah,
Yeah.
but then directly after that, I went back to the hostel where I'd stayed at the first time this happened, and it was really quiet. And I don't know, it felt very isolating there. But I met the owners; they were pretty jovial people. Yeah. Then eventually, I got like applied for volunteering here at Solfam, who had just opened, and I wasn't aware, but saw their website. They're like, if you're LGBT and you want to come and volunteer, then come here. And I was like, well, this is a godsend. I say again as an atheist, and and then yeah, I applied to come down here. Then for the first week, I tried to maintain my sales job, but it became apparent I'm not able to do both. So then I left my telesales job and yeah, been working for myself freelance again. And yeah, I've also met a lot of interesting people through here. So it's been since here it's been on an upward journey. I've been interfacing a lot with the trans community. Met a trans man as well now who've been talking to. He's going through a bit of a rough time and it's currently living in a shelter. And yeah, but it's been great interfacing with the larger trans community and just getting to know such awesome people. Make it a daily event to go down to the lighthouse in Greenpoint, just hang around the beach there. So nice. So many people have their dogs
That's
there,
cool.
so it's cool. And I walk through the Greenpoint Park. It's such a lovely environment.
Yeah.
Through basically the toughest time of my life, I've accomplished a major life goal, which is being in Cape Town itself. It was a really tough year, but it's as the phrase goes, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times, and that's basically been 2025 for me. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's been my journey, and I still think there's going to be a few plot twists before the year ends, to be honest. So I'm excited and a little scared to see where things go, but mainly excited.
We still have 4 months to
Yeah, that's scary.
go. That is an epic story.
Thank you.
You said at one stage that you were sorry, I keep bumping this thing. You said at one stage that you were relieved that you were detransitioning back in 2023. It was relief because you don't have to go through transition, or it was relief because you don't have to experience the discrimination you have to face by going through transition.
It's a bit difficult to say, but I think where my headspace was at the time was my sister was living with me, and like there was some difficulty in the family at the time, and so it was a difficult living situation. Like I mean, I didn't have any furniture, and so and we were actually just being. I think maybe what I felt was like we were being very positive and getting along and making some good plans for where we can go next. And yeah, that's mainly what I felt. It's like we were actually getting along well, and I was also maybe relieved. I don't have to go through this discrimination. That's also part of it. But like I said, it was a relief, but it was also quite a temporary relief because then about a month after that, I came crashing down again. And also, it's with the dissociation, I realized it was a lot deeper than I actually thought it was. Like there was, I don't really still experience this as strongly, but at the time when I was living in Pretoria, because I'd gone through a few traumatic events from 2021 to 2023. Like I, I had COVID in 2021. I still can't smell all that well because of it. Like my sense of smell is impaired permanently because of it. Well, I'm not sure if permanently, but it's been basically permanently impaired since then. Then I I went through a lot of traumatic experiences, like, being sexually assaulted at the workplace, and also just experiencing that. And then I started to come to terms with my gender identity, and I thought, is one causing the other? Because I think there is a bit of a stereotype, if you go through
There
sexual
is
trauma,
history.
then there is that stereotype, and unfortunately, it was ingrained into me. So I thought one is causing the other. So I was like still believing that, and detransitioning and thinking that it's because of this. Because in when was it? I think it was late 2022. Or it was before my sister came to stay with me, early 2023. Actually, late 2022, the month before I started going to therapy. Like, I mean, so some girl I knew flashed me at the working environment, and that doesn't sound like much, but it was traumatic. Just being having somebody expose themselves to you while you're busy at work. And I've because I was working on the computer, it's the one place I actually really feel safe. I always feel safe when I'm looking at a computer, when it's my computer or somebody else's. And then ever since then, it's been very hard for me to actually sit here physically doing this without spacing out, because it seemed like a minor thing, because and there's also a lot of stereotypes in place. But then I started going through this transition, and I was also thinking, is it because of this or that? And and then about a few months later, like one of my neighbors at the place I was staying at, he invited me in for a drink, and like I thought, okay, it's the guy was a little bit weird, but I'm weird too, so I thought whatever. The next thing you know, he's like trying to push me into something. Like he's making advances, and I told him, listen here, I'm not interested. And then he knew what he was doing was wrong. And then I just had to quickly hightail it out of that situation. And so I made a call to my dad to go and do my laundry, because the place I had, I didn't have a washing machine, so I had to always lug my laundry in the washing bin 2 blocks back home, like walk with it, because I didn't have a car. So then that was my escape. So I got on the call with my dad, and then just walked out of the apartment. The guy said nothing, didn't come to look for me or anything. I think he knew, like, okay, charade's over. And yeah, then I thankfully took some, well, I didn't go through lawyer, but I went through official means to, get the guy out of the apartment complex, and he left without any further incident. So I drew upon my support network, but I also think then there was a little bit of discrimination that happened, because I mean, I think maybe those people were I noticed there was a pulling away with communication. We were once on good terms, but now suddenly they weren't really talking to me anymore when I mentioned what had happened, because I told them exactly what happened the day it happened. I sent a voice note to the guy, the manager, and they were pretty shocked by it, but I don't know, they made it more about themselves than anything else. So they didn't really ever check in with me again, ask how I'm doing. And my first therapist turned it into a racial issue, so that was weird. And I second therapist was at least very supportive. So I spoke about both of these, and then so to come back to the whole relief I felt was the reason why it was short lived is because I was still dealing with that trauma, and it that's not something that really goes away easily. It's because it becomes such a weird part. It infects. It's like a computer virus, it's a worm. It infects different parts of your system, and then things aren't running correctly, and you just don't know why. And then I've also realized, like, there's a lot of stuff that my traumatic response is to look for affirmation from people the whole time. Even bad people have this compulsive need to be on the good side. And then I would look at myself act, and I'm like, you see, I mean, my sister also pointed this out to me. It's like, why are you befriending some of the biggest assholes in the world? Why are you being nice to them? Tell them to fuck off. And I would be like, no, I have to, because I thought I did, because I didn't know anything about my attachment style until now recently. I realized that I'm, preoccupied, anxious, and this is exactly what a anxious attachment style does. Is you're always scared of being abandoned, so you and you're always scared of conflict. So you do whatever you can not to be abandoned, and even if you're not in a good environment, and then yeah, then eventually being around people who've hurt me a lot, or being around the same person who you know, harassed me, it started to really chip away at me just piece by piece until I could no longer function. So eventually I had to leave the environment and then, but I started transitioning again. And then, yeah. And once again, this, I've realized now there is this pattern where I seem to get involved with, like, have bad men in my life. And that, I think it's that attachment style keeps on drawing because they see this vulnerability and they like to prey on it. This
They
happened
prey
to
on
me
it,
so many
exactly.
times. I mean, when like the landlords I mentioned, but what I also didn't mention is like this year, like there was somebody who I thought was a friend. I mean, the guy was really cold and critical and negative towards me, and he was saying race realist stuff. But when I was kicked out, like I stayed with the guy for a weekend, but I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. But at least to say, he plastered me with so many drinks, I couldn't really function anymore. And then, like, I drew a boundary with him at one sexual act. Like, we started to hook up, but then I told him there's one act, like I'm not open to. And then while he thought I was asleep, he tried to do that with me. And then, because I was still awake, I asked him, "What are you doing?" And then he immediately backed off. Like the guy became shit scared very quickly because he knew what he was doing was wrong. So then I just got out of bed and went and slept in the next room. Once, same deal. Like, guy never checked in or asked about it. He knew what he was doing is wrong. But then later through therapy, like I remember my therapist was actually a little bit freaked out when I told her like this whole event came spilling out. It's like she told me this sounds very traumatic, and I was like, yeah, it was. And then eventually, I was trying to make peace with the guy again, because, fearful attachment, like I feel I need to do what's best. Then I just like I woke up the next morning and like a voice inside my head told me, hey, this, you don't need this guy in your life. You really should stay away from him. So then I sent him a message and I said to him, look, I've tried to make peace with you, but you're not a good person. I want nothing to do with you. Don't ever contact me again. And I blocked him. And I'm really glad I did that, because that was actually a major turning point for me. And I think that's really been the biggest victory this year, was just realizing that, hey, this is why I keep on falling into the same pattern the whole time, and I've taken steps to stop it from happening, but it's difficult. I mean, if you've been raised with an abusive parent, like an abusive father, then that, uh, and especially like at the level we were raised, it's so insidious. It's like I told my therapist, I've healed with a lot of wounds and I've learned to work past them, but it's death by a thousand cuts. I've healed 500 cuts, but I've still got 500 more I've got to work through. So you don't realize how much of your life is just governed by past trauma. And yeah, but I have to say, realizing who, my attachment style, and realizing it's because your attachment style forms when you're at your most helpless. Your first 3 years, your first 18 months. So that's before your conscious memory really starts to kick in. So that's actually when you're helpless. So it's something that's beyond. I'm not in control. It's not. I'm not in control of the fact that I have a anxious attachment style, but I'm still in control of how I react, and we can start to heal and become more secure in our attachments. And I think, yeah, that was the biggest thing I realized, was like I have this pattern of getting involved with these bad men, and realizing that now is also like, okay, well, if I meet a man and he's making all kinds of promises, then I really have to look at the facts. And it's almost like you have the self hatred that keeps on letting you fall into the same pattern. But yeah, it it's been a difficult thing to deal with, and yeah, it's been very healing, but at the same time, there's still a lot of work to be done. So yeah, but to answer your question, that's how my year was.
That's wild. I was thinking about, I had multiple questions to ask while you were talking, and they've gone
Hmm.
away.
Yeah, I was a little bit on a roll there, but yeah.
I don't know what my attachment style is. What I do know is I've always been an exhibitionist and a bit of a slut. So those are things that I'm coming to terms with now. But and I'm enjoying. I'm not saying those things as a bad thing. The stigmas have been lifted. But sometimes there's still, self-deprecation. Let me tell you about my year anyway. Um, I'm just trying to think about where to start. Back in 2022, my relationship became open and not polyamorous, just open to being polyamorous, and the right term is non-monogamous, right? Because those two things I think are a little bit different. Um, and then all of and that didn't come from a bad space. I hate this. There's a idea in a lot of the world that couples do this to try and save their marriage or whatever. No, our marriage was not in a great place, and then we tried something that we had discussed plenty of times before, and it worked, and our relationship started improving. But my we also dug ourselves out of a mountain of debt in the order of about 20 or 30,000 US dollars. And so that took about 3 years. And we bought a new car in that time that I paid off. So basically for 3 years there was no money. We're like living on the scrounges. And when I finally dug myself out of that, there was just this massive sense of relief, and I came into a new job where there was enough money to start saving in earnest and start relaxing and stepping back and thinking about things. And I've always wanted a podcast since the time I knew about being about podcasts. I've wanted one, but I never knew what I wanted to talk about. Enter Kaleidoscope because I realized that I just want to talk to people. I just want to find out what their stories are, how they've come to the space where they're at, and what that means for them, and then try and learn from that, because I think we can learn from everybody. And I also think that my own life was so kind of secluded and shut off for my own protection of hiding the fact that I'm transgender and just being perceived as an introvert and having very few friends, not really socializing a lot. But when I do get talking, I love to go as deep as possible, especially with strangers. Like I just love interacting with strange people, like people I don't know, not strange people. Um, anyway, I became more and more depressed. We've been through this, and then I found a way, and I went on to estrogen, about a antispironolactone, so anti-androgens. I also think that I may have always been intersex or androgen insensitive, because I have never been a hairy person ever. No, but I was preparing to tell my family, my closest relatives, that I am transitioning. And then I phoned them. I don't want to give too many details in public. They've asked not to, and I will respect that. But I phoned and I was told that my letter had been read. And I was like, what letter? I haven't sent anyone any letters. And then they were like, "Oh, you're trans." Cue just like defensive knee jerk reaction of me saying that this is completely out of line, and to invalidate that person's autonomy by telling other people is one of the worst things that you could possibly do to them. Imagine I at the time I equated it to a pregnant woman who finds out that she is pregnant. She confides in you that she is pregnant, but she tells you that she's not ready to tell anybody, and then you immediately go and tell her. It's a violation of privacy in the extreme.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, yeah. Anyway, so then and I had also just received my prescription to get. I live in China. Received my prescription to get HRT in China. So I started off non-prescription. I had made my own estrogen, a lot of it. I have enough estrogen in that drawer over there to last me like 2 years. So I had made my own, and just to prepare because I had no idea what was going to happen. But I know that if I stop, it's not going to be. It's not going to be good. It's not a good thing for for me because my brain has rewired itself completely. Like I don't think the same way anymore. I don't perceive the world in the same way, and that happened like days after I realized and embraced this my own identity. So anyway, I had just received this prescription and I was trying to figure out how to deal with it, especially because I work with kids and Donald Trump had just been elected and told the world that we don't exist and that we are not who we say we are and that we are just a whole litany of terrible, heinous things and we want to shoot everyone with guns, apparently. So this was a problem for me, and I knew that if I wanted to tell, like, if somebody discovered this and I hadn't been proactive in that process, it could be very bad for me. So I went to HR and I told them, and then 2 days later, they said, "Hey, you said you would resign, so we're here to collect your resignation letter." And I told them, "That's not what I said. There's been a heinous miscommunication. I don't think you understand what I mean." I tried to explain myself. They said, "We will take your resignation letter. You're going to affect the children." And then at that point, I said, "Well, then you have to speak to me." So I did get a lawyer and everything stalled out because they wanted my visa to expire and force me to leave, which would have been very bad. Even though I had other methods of staying in China, it just would have made my life quite difficult. So I went through about 5 months of just horrible hostility at work, where my boss started completely ignoring me. Um, People didn't respond. Like I would send HR a message like, "I need this document by this time." No response. "I need you to tell me about this. And then they changed it. "Oh, you don't want to us your resignation letter? We're canceling our contract." And then I said, "Well, my contract is a lot of money, a lot of money. And if you want to take that route, then it's, you're going to pay me out the full value of the contract because that's the rule. That's the labor law in China." Eventually, they decided. Well, I backed off because I don't want to sit fighting people. I need to find a job, and my mental health with Donald Trump and work and trying to find a new job and the risk of defaulting on any payments or anything um, became a major problem for me. So I settled. I took basically 3 months of severance. Um, so this month will be the last payment from that school. And I got a new visa and I've been able to move to a new school and it's a much more liberal school, but I'm not openly trans there. It is a problem though, because some students are asking, "Why do you teach her? Why do you look like a girl?" Um, and that also prompted me to go to South Africa and meet you, Kira, because I realized that if I don't like I have this contract now. If something happens, if I lose this contract or next year they don't renew me, I might not be able to get a new job because my androgyny is to the extent where kids just are much more perceptive than adults when it comes to gender and even the performance of gender because they're still learning it. And what they see doesn't matter what I wear. It doesn't matter about my presentation or expression at work. They see a female teacher teaching them. Um, and yeah, so anyway, I just want to avoid as much trouble as that. So my passport is going to change to F and my name will change to Ruby Ray. And once that happens, I will probably lose this job where I am. I hope not.
Okay.
I know the principal.
Mm.
I've worked with him before. He's given me teacher of the year before. I know his assistant very well. We worked together in the previous school that we are at. They both like me. Um, and the school is big enough to transfer me to another department where I will never have to see the students that I'm working with now ever again. Or I could go to a kindergarten within the same school. And I would like to do that. But if they don't let me do that, then I will just find a new job. But I will force them to legally change my visa over so that I don't have to show the new school my old passport
Yeah.
because that is my legal right. Like my passport will change, my identity will change, but my obligation to the previous identity is persistent. My personhood is persistent. So yeah, there's also president, but the problem is the fact that children are involved and parents are involved and school payments are involved and I'm in a conservative country, it just makes everything much
Yeah.
harder. Oh, and I was talking about polyamory. That
Mm.
has now become a factor that I have been able to explore much more in my new state of being. And it's lovely. It's lovely. We'll leave it at that. That's my year. I I'm facing much more uh discrimination, hate, just a torrent of hate that I would never have been able to conceive of in the wildest fantastical fantasy story is literally streaming its way into my inbox on a daily fucking basis. And I'm I don't think people realize. I don't think people realize the extent. Even transphobes don't realize the extent of the hate that they pour our way. Um, for no valid reason.
Mm. Mm.
So, but my point is, despite all of that, I am sparkling, and yeah, they can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Or subscribe,
So,
you know? If you can subscribe, you can keep pouring the hate. Just give me that engagement. Follow and
yeah,
subscribe.
absolutely. Yeah.
My
So
story was
sounds like
considerably
a
shorter than yours.
yeah. I felt like I had stories within stories I had to tell, and it's usually the way it
No,
goes. It
it's
was like
fine.
a
You
little
have to get them
tangent.
out, you know?
Yeah, I do. Like this. I'm still going to talk about them in more detail. I mean, on my channel, I did briefly talk about the evictions, but I think also like a lot of YouTubers do story time. I think especially the Stellenbosch one is like it's a pretty crazy story. I mean, there's a lot more to it. Like the guy had his toaster on the balcony. That's another story in and of itself. It because he thought the cockroaches can't get it if he puts his toaster on the balcony. There were all kinds of weird things that happened there. That's just it's funny now in retrospect, but it was very stressful to live with. But it does sound like
Hold the
yeah.
fuck up. Wait. Just hold on. Somebody had a cockroach problem And their solution to the problem was to move their appliance away from the cockroaches in the same house, but not try to get rid of the cockroaches.
Yeah, exactly. He,
This is why we choose the
he,
bear. I will choose the bear.
yeah, he, he also thought he was destroying their morale by, I don't know, putting an old T-shirt in a hole to keep them away. Because apparently cockroaches are too dumb to get around a T-shirt. There's all kinds of weird, weird things. He moved his toaster outside and told me to put the toaster outside, and yeah, there was some.
She's going to be back in a second, but that is insane. That's insane. You cannot put a hole, you cannot put cloth in front of a cockroach nest or whatever burrow, whatever you call that, to get rid of cockroaches. They will eat the cotton. They don't give a fuck. Okay? You don't know their diet. If you are this man is probably one of those who does not invest into toilet paper. This man is probably one of those who thinks that it is emasculating to shower on a regular basis and keep clean. Do you guys destroy the morale of cockroaches with cotton? Let's message Kira and see if we can get her back.